When I'm shooting with the Lumix GH6, GH5, or S5, there's 7 pieces of gear that I cannot live without.
All right, let's get this on.
If you're new here, my name is Caleb, and I've been doing freelance videos since 2012, and I've been using Lumix cameras since the GH4. So if you want to learn more about Lumix cameras like the GH6, GH5, or S5, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm just going to be super transparent. This is totally a revenue generating video for me. So I'm definitely and unashamedly putting all affiliate links down in the description. And if you use those affiliate links, it totally helps support this channel, which I truly do appreciate. Now, do you need some of these things to make great videos? Absolutely not, but these definitely help. And everything in this video that I'm talking about is fairly inexpensive. So for not very much money, these things can actually help your workflow. The very first thing that I'm going to talk about is the cage. I have all of my cameras caged up. You can attach a ton of different accessories to the cage, and this is really where your cinema rig build is where it starts. Some of them even have these clamps to hold in cables like HDMI cable or a USB-C cable. And I actually have my S5 right here, and on this one I've got caged up with the small rig Black Mamba cage. So everything really, if you're building out any type of cinema rig, it's gonna start with the cage, and the cage is the #1 thing on my list when it comes to gear that I cannot live without. The second thing is actually a grade card. Grade cards come in all different shapes and sizes. This one in particular is collapsible and comes with a pouch so that I can just toss it in my camera bag. When shooting with Lumix cameras, the grade card comes in super handy because, first of all, I can set my white balance to it. And then second of all, I can set my exposure. And I've got a couple videos about setting your exposure on the GH5 and GH6, so make sure you check those out. The third thing on my list of gear that I cannot live without is actually the variable ND filter. Usually when I'm shooting with Lumix cameras, I like to keep it at the native ISO, and like on the S5, it's 640. So that's a pretty hot ISO, especially if you're outdoors. And then when I set my aperture, if I'm outdoors, I don't really even like to go above like 5.6, like f5.6. And that's where the variable ND comes in, because then I can tweak my exposure with this rather than, closing up the lens too much. So a variable ND is almost a must-have in my opinion. There's a bunch of great ones out there. I like K&F. They're fairly inexpensive. I'm actually using a variable ND in this scene right now. And that leads me to my next piece of gear that I cannot live without. That's step-up rings for the variable ND. So you might have a few different lenses, and a lot of times they're all different sizes. Rather than getting a variable ND for every single lens that you have, maybe get some step-up rings like this, super inexpensive, and then you can step up from your lens size to a bigger size variable ND. Now that's one of the things I've run into with shooting on the GH5 or GH6 is that you can use so many different types of lenses on them. Anything from adapting lenses to some of the native lenses are just different sizes. So rather than getting a variable ND for each one of those, I just got some step-up rings, and I was just able to get a bigger variable ND and step up to that variable ND on whatever lens I was using. Now, if you have like a 58 front thread on your lens, but you have like a size 77 variable ND, it's going to look kind of funny, but you know what? It's going to serve the same purpose whether it looks funny or not. So throughout the years of shooting with Lumix, these step-up rings have been crucial in my experience with it. The next piece of gear that I cannot live without is actually the focus gear ring for the follow focus. A lot of times if you get a follow focus, you're going to get one of these adjustable focus gears that just kind of get in the way and are all weird like, and on a personal level, I actually really don't like these. Do they work? Absolutely. And if that's all you have, that's fantastic. But you can get these follow focus gear rings for any type of lens, any size of lens, and they're really inexpensive. You can just toss these on any lens and keep them on there, and it's basically like turning your photography lenses into a cinema lens. It's just something recently I've really liked using, and I'm putting it on my list of gear that I cannot live without. This next piece, I cannot tell you how many times I've used this, and this is an articulating arm with the clamp. Now, a lot of times when I'm shooting an interview and it's just me, like I'm just a lot of times just a one-man show, and this articulating arm I've used for mounting the audio recorder, I've used for mounting a camera, I've used for mounting a monitor, and I love it because you can just strap it right onto a tripod or a C-stand or any type of light stand. That way you don't have to have like a bunch of extra stands kind of all over the floor. You can use these to mount whatever you're using, and they come in super handy, and I love having these articulating arms around. All right, the last piece of gear that I have on my can't live without list is the quick release. And if you tighten it too much, then it's the not so quick release, but I love having a quick release on my tripod. You know, get a few of these, put them on the different tripods, mount them to your camera cage, and it makes life so much easier when you have to go from like a gimbal to a tripod or a different tripod, a slider. So get yourself a good quick release, and this is item number 7 on gear that I cannot live without. Well, that's my list of gear that I cannot live without when I'm shooting with Lumix cameras. Do you have anything that you would add to it? Let me know down in the comments. We can get a conversation started down there. And again, do you need any of this stuff to make great videos? Absolutely not, but they come in super helpful. Well, that's all I have for this video. If you have time, maybe stick around. Watch one of these videos that's popping up on your screen right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.